distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just very quickly say how extremely pleased I am that this particular engagement is going on. As was said, I was invited last year to participate in this meeting, the Modular Refiners Association meeting, but I couldn't make it. But I felt that it was important that at least I attended one of the events. And the reason is that we do owe ourselves as a nation a responsibility to exploit for ourselves indigenously the raw materials that we have. I just listening to Professor Ikwe a few minutes ago. This is exactly the motive behind our trying to establish modular refineries across the Niger Delta region in particular, and wherever we can find oil and gas resources. A lot of the interest around modular refineries possibly began with the sense that if we're able to provide an alternative, I'm sure many of us are familiar with the illegal refineries all over the Niger Delta and the very serious environmental damage that that has done. This is aside from the fact, of course, that the crude is stolen, and even in the process of stealing the crude, a lot of environmental damage is done. But a lot of those young men and women out there, feel that, well, this is a resource that's available. There is no opportunity to exploit it, so why don't we exploit it, by whatever means possible, including the illegal. And that, of course, has caused very serious damage to, all over the Niger Delta. So there is a very serious reason, an environmental reason, and also a reason of law and order to ensure that we regulate the production, the processing and production of oil. But the second and possibly more important reason is the fact that the raw material is there. There is no nation on the face of the earth that would have the sheer amount of oil and gas resources that we have, and that will not be innovative and creative about its processing and production. There is not. The Indonesians took palm oil from us and built, and they now have all these palm oil plantations everywhere. And there's practically nothing that the Indonesians do not use palm oil to do. They have a whole, palm oil sub-economy, a whole ecosystem that deals entirely on palm, just practically anything that you can imagine. So there is opportunity for local processing, there's opportunity for the high-flying type of processing, there's opportunity for every grade and level of business that wants to partake of that ecosystem. And that's exactly why we need to do what we're doing about modular refineries. There are those who have argued that modular refineries are not lucrative, they're not cost efficient. These days, there's no reason to build modular refineries, and they've made some very important points, especially around the fact that under 2,000 barrels a day, you may not make money, and they give all sorts of reasons. But the examples they usually cite are of examples of countries that do not have the sheer range and amount of resources that we have. If you have the resources that we have, then it really is just a matter of modulating your business model such that you're able to deal with the particular subsector that you want to deal with. There's I'm sure some of us are familiar with the Niger Delta the Niger Delta processing refinery that's in Ogbele in Rivers State. Produces 1,000 barrels of oil a day, which is a small refinery, just 1,000 barrels of oil. It processes 1,000 barrels of oil a day. It's able to produce a wide range, but most of it is diesel. And it uses it all up and sells everything. And of course, it's very lucrative. There's another 2,000 barrel a day refinery, which is also modular refinery, which is also doing very well. Now, why are they able to do so well? First, They have a good business model. Secondly, there is good private sector involvement in it. Government cannot just go and be setting up refineries. If government sets up a refinery and gives it to people to run, it won't work. And we have a good example or good examples in all the refineries that we have seen. If you look at the refineries we have today in Warri, in Port Harcourt, all the refineries, Kaduna, the reason why they are not functioning today, the primary reason is that they are government run. Whoever says anything differently isn't telling the truth. The primary reason is that they are government run. Government cannot do business. Government's business is to create the enabling environment for business. At best, government will invest, put some investment into it. At best, but government should not be in the business of setting up refineries all over the place. That's just a waste of time and resources. So one of the reasons why these refineries are successful is, as I said, because they are private sector run. And if they are private sector run, the efficiencies are there, they have a good business model. And what we've been trying to do with our modular refinery operations now is that we're developing a framework that we believe would work. Everybody who wants a license and who is able to present a sensible business case will be given a license to operate a modular refinery. But we're drafting now, we're trying to develop a very robust set of guidelines that will help people to do this well. We've gotten so much interest all over the country and practically everywhere around the world, and especially from young people in the Niger Delta who want to be involved in the modular refinery business. So many young people in the Niger Delta, and many of them are coming in with investors. Many of them are coming in with private sector investors. But what we want to do, and this, as I've said, is really the new vision for dealing with issues in the Niger Delta. And when I went around the Niger Delta, I talked about the President's new vision, President Muhammad Buhari's new vision for dealing with the Niger Delta. So that new vision involves the federal government, the state government, the communities, and the private sector. So even in establishing a modular refinery, we want to see, obviously the federal government is going to be involved in it, state governments will also be involved, putting in some percentage, but we also want to see that the communities are involved. So each community would also be able to take a percentage of ownership, and of course the private sector. All of the private sector participants that we have spoken to, both foreign and local, agree that community participation is crucial. One of the reasons for the bitterness that you find, amongst oil-producing communities is that they're not involved in any way, and this resource is right there in their own on their soil. So they obviously want to get involved in it, and there's no reason why they shouldn't get involved in it. If there's damage to the environment, if the place is taken up, they are the ones who suffer the consequences. So there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't participate. But participation should not, we shouldn't feel a sense of entitlement about participation. There's nothing wrong with young people in the Niger Delta, and this is a challenge I threw to many of the young people in the Niger Delta, that everybody there, these are young men and women who are Nigerians, aggressive, innovative, creative young people. You are not entitled to it because I live in the Niger Delta. No, you're entitled to it because you also have the brains, the resources to be able to make it happen. And this is what I've seen from my engagement with many of the young people in the Niger Delta. They themselves are bringing in the investors. They themselves are talking to private investors locally and internationally, and they're bringing them in. So I think that we're on the cusp of a very robust engagement with young people who are going to be doing a lot of very incredible things with modular refineries in the Niger Delta region. But it's not all rosy, because when you look at how long it takes, there's nothing magical about establishing any industry, let alone one that is as complicated as a refinery, not just setting up the refinery, but the business. the business of running it, the business of selling it, and all of that. Now, people have various complications. Look at PMS, for example. If you produce PMS, there's a challenge with costing of it because PMS prices are still somewhat regulated. About a year ago, we, to a certain extent, deregulated. Prices moved up from about 86, pump prices of fuel moved up from 86 to 145, or 87 to 145 naira per liter. That was a huge jump, a massive jump. Of course, it had consequences for prices of transportation and all sorts of other prices. There are those who are saying you need to deregulate fully. Why are they saying that? Because if you don't, to a certain extent, deregulate, it's not cost effective for those who are producing PMS to sell, right? But at the same time, if you deregulate completely, prices of everything else is going to go up. So there are those complications, and so we've got to moderate all of those things. Government has to come in to a certain extent, and this is what is going on even at the moment, to try and balance things up. Because you can't have, just overnight, another massive deregulation. If you do that, obviously the consequences will be very dire for the economy. But diesel is deregulated. And that's why a lot of modular refineries are focusing on diesel. The one I just talked about, the refinery in Ogbele, is essentially a diesel refinery, and other components of petroleum resources, because that's deregulated. So there isn't much of a business complication with producing that and selling. So we've got to look at how this will work, how this will be balanced. And so making a business case for it is also something that must engage our time and attention, and that's what we're trying to do, working with private sector people to do this. Just last week, I think it was Friday or so, or Thursday, I met with the Chemical Association, the Association of Chemical Engineers of Nigeria. Now these are, and this was the executive, now these are very brilliant Nigerians who have been involved in the petrochemical industry for very, very many years. Very experienced. Many of them worked at the highest levels of the NNPC, Shell, and many of the IOCs. But they've come together now to say, look, we want to help you on this issue of modular refineries. We want to help you on this issue of refining. And I had a very long and detailed meeting with them, very interesting engagement with them. All of them are saying the same. They are saying the same thing. These things are possible if we all sit together and try and work it out. And we know that the objective is that we want to develop a petrochemical industry that justifies the huge resources that we have as a nation. And that really is the objective of this, that the resources are there. So much of it, the amount of gas that is flared every day, the amount of gas that still lies there untapped, the amount of petroleum resources untapped in this country is huge, is immense. There is no type of petrochemical industry that we cannot have. There is no level that we cannot do, whether it is small scale, medium, or any of the large scale enterprises that we have. There is no aspect of this ecosystem that a Nigerian cannot participate in. What we as government are committed to is to create that environment, is to create that enabling environment. And that's why I think this particular meeting is important. And I really want to encourage the association to work very hard, but let's be realistic. Let's look at the business. Let's look at the business of this thing. It's okay to say, yes, we can do it. Yes, government must do this, but let's look at the business of it. How can we ensure that this will be lucrative? What are the issues? What are the obstacles? I certainly will be waiting for the outcome of this meeting. But more importantly, I'll be waiting for you to critique the work that we're doing, especially the guidelines that are being set forth by the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Presidency, the guidelines that we're looking at. We want you to be able to critique those guidelines. Will this work? Will this not work? Because it's important for us that all of this works, And as I said, the our major partners in this must be the private sector, which most of you represent. So I'd like to congratulate you again, the Modular Refineries Association, and all of the stakeholders who are here. This country, as we always say, belongs to all of us. We can make it work. We really can make this country work. And the best way to make it work is what we're doing here. Let's organize, let's plan, let's work together, let's think together. And I'm sure that if we do so, we're going to have the kind of country that we've all dreamt of, including the kind of country that Professor Igwe's family can come back to from the US. Thank you very much. God bless you.